Hi, everybody. Welcome to Pandemic Punditry. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're from, joining us from around the world today. We are thrilled, delighted to have Jason Mark Campbell with us today. And he is the host of Impact at Work and Superhumans at Work, a Mind Valley podcast, author of the upcoming book, Selling with Love. So we're really excited to have him. I think you're going to hear a very different perspective on sales from Jason. And we are thrilled to have you. Welcome to Pandemic Punditry, Jason.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And you're right. I saw the lineup of all the incredible people you're bringing on the show. And first off, just, congratulations. Thank you for doing this. I think you're bringing what is the right knowledge that people need to have when it comes to doing their best during these times. And I'm hoping to help maybe some of the people that have a bit more hesitancy with sales. And for those who already embrace sales, I'm hoping to just unlock that extra notch of fire to make them unstoppable.
Oh, great. Well, that's amazing. So we're looking forward to doing that with you together. Yes. And I think, what fundamentally sort of interested me when I saw you on Mark Metry, who was also, by the way, one of our guests, was that, this perspective that you bring is more personal than it is, we've heard a lot from the experts talking about techniques and tools and things like that and technologies that you can use. This is a lot more about your own, attitude towards sales. And I think that's what's really compelling. Can you give us a little bit background of sort of, Jason, how you ended up sort of at Mind Valley and focusing on this aspect of selling? And I know that you, in many forums you've shared sort of your story about how you sort of came to this point in life where you embraced this selling with love.
Yeah. So, all right. We'll unpackage this in a few ways. So one thing is the fact that, I found myself at Mind Valley. And for those who don't know, Mind Valley, it's personal growth education online. We're bringing all sorts of teachings when it comes to, the mindset, spirituality, health and fitness, and this element of productivity or professional growth, which at the end of the day, if you didn't know, all of the professional growth starts with personal growth too, but we won't tell big corporations yet. It was so interesting. Before I was at Mind Valley, I was working in sales in a real estate company. So I was a real estate investor. I was also educating Canadian individuals who were becoming real estate entrepreneurs. And in the process, I was working remotely before it was cool, like in 2020. I don't know if cool is the right word to use for the way that we're forced to be remote, but at the same time, I found myself being a digital nomad. So I was working for a Canadian company and I was living in Thailand, which was actually my second choice. The first choice was to go to Australia. And then I realized that you don't get more purchase power by moving to Australia. Actually, when you go to Thailand, every Canadian dollar that I made could make you buy a lot more things. So it just made sense. In the process, I designed myself a remote-friendly lifestyle. I was working 4 hours a week. So anybody who's a fan of that book by Tim Ferriss, I basically read it, applied it, and found myself living there. And it was at a time where I was really doing well financially, yet I was thinking like, what's the contribution I want to make in the world? Like, what's the impact I want to make? And without really knowing how to get there, I got an email from this company, Mind Valley. They said, hey, our office is in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and you can always visit it. And the interesting thing that happens, how things align, is that I end up going in, I visit the office, and by the end of that visit, they're like, hey, you should apply here. And I was like, well, I'm doing well. I don't think so. And by the time I actually went and journaled on my computer at the cafe downstairs, there was an email from my former employer saying, hey, we need you to come back to Canada. We can't have you be remote anymore. And if you can't come back, we'll have to let you go. And, most people would be crushed. And here I'm just like, wait a second, is this a coincidence? I'm going to follow Aminul's hint here is that I listened to my intuition and I decided to send a resume or send an application right then and there. And the reason to choose Mind Valley was very simple. It's looking to transform the lives of 1 billion people through education. And I don't know how they were doing it. Matter of fact, I walked into that office. I didn't even know what they sold, but I knew they were doing the right thing from the right place. And I said, wherever this magical school bus is going, I want a seat on it. I don't care where I'm sitting, but we're going to go on a journey.
Wow. So it's amazing how the universe aligns sometimes, right? When one door closes, the other one opens automatically. That's destiny in some sense. I'm glad you found Mind Valley and so tell us a little bit about this concept of selling with love. And I think it will be interesting because a lot of people have trepidation around the profession of selling to begin with, right? I mean, we're all sort of accidental salespeople, myself included, right? I sort of started in the services realm and built, programming and all of this kind of stuff, and giving solutions to companies all over the world. And then suddenly, I found that I was actually selling more than the salesperson who officially had the title and the perks that went with it. And I said, hey, why don't I actually do this? In fact, because the customers seemed to respond to me better than they were responding to the salesperson. So that's how and I'm a very unorthodox salesperson by birth, because I simply didn't sort of come from that, school of selling that people are more used to, right? The aggressive sort of in your face, I'm trying to shove something down your throat school. So it's been a sort of a, interesting journey. And when I meet sort of kindred spirits like yourself and others that have adopted this same philosophy, which is a lot more high touch, a little bit more listening than talking. I think, I felt gratified that I'm not the only person in the world that seems to be doing that. Thank God.
And what's surprising to me is, like, you've had that experience. The customers more enjoyed talking with you. I wouldn't be surprised to hear that they probably ended up staying in business with you longer, making repeat purchases because they had you as a person to talk to. They had trust with you, loyalty with you, which is everything you're looking for in a sales process, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
So it fascinates me, and it's mostly because we've had a shift, and the shift is that buyers are not unaware anymore. Like, we have access to information, which has been a great thing for the world. And, there's a big responsibility that actually comes to us as buyers, because if we want salespeople to be better, we need to demand better salespeople. Like, if we are buying from the people that we don't feel that we trust, then you're actually encouraging bad behavior. And what I love to pick on you a little bit from the words you said is you accidentally fell into sales. And I think everybody that finds themselves in a sales position who probably hasn't heard what some of my concepts are going to be like, I'm a salesperson, but not really. I'm more of like I'm a good kind. Like you as soon as someone is labeled a salesperson, you have to justify that you're not like those guys.
Exactly.
And it's funny because I wouldn't say we accidentally fall into salespeople. I actually claim within my literature that we're all salespeople. And the problem we have is the only caricatures we have as salespeople are those slimy, sleazy, manipulative, take advantage of people, aggressive salespeople that nobody likes. And if this is the image we have of a salesperson, who wants to be that? Like, what kind of energy do you need to put in to fight the resistance you already face psychologically? Because every time you sell, you think, my God, I need to be like those people. So now you're spending 70% of your energy just trying to get your foot off. You're pressing the gas with your foot on the brake full on because you have to step into something you don't necessarily enjoy, something you don't want to relate to. I call this the kind of the shame, guilt blockages energy level when it comes to sales. So, when I started doing this and I started talking to people and realizing how much baggage we have around our ideas with sales, this is where I realized this is the first stepping stone. So if anybody's watching this and has all those negative thoughts about sales, I'm hoping that by the end of this presentation, I'll give you a better role model to look after. Because I'd like to ask you, like, put the sales number aside because there's too much baggage, right?
Sure.
Let's talk role models, right? Do you have any role models, like people that everybody knows? And I'll kick off with one that's quite obvious. I'll say Elon Musk. Do you have your own role models that you look up to?
Yeah, I mean, from a sales perspective or just generally in life?
There's no sales involved.
Okay, just role model. Okay. Well, that's a good question. I've been asked that many times, and my wife always says, "How come you always pick the male guys? Why don't you pick some females in your life?"
We relate, right? So
yeah, I mean, maybe the genders relate, but I think one of the most interesting role models that I have, and I didn't get to spend too much time with him because he died when I was pretty young, was my grandfather actually. Right, he was the calm in the storm, right? So everything would be going to crap around him, right? I mean, all kinds of stress, and he would be this beacon of calmness and even keelness. That is just, I mean, very hard. And I tried. I've been a lifetime spent in trying to model that behavior. Because in life you have all kinds of things going around you, and as you take on more responsible roles and you're responsible for hundreds of people, it becomes challenging when things are not going very well to sort of be that that beacon of light, a steady hand at the wheel kind of thing. And he in everything that he did, in every sphere of activity, he exuded that kind of calmness that then generally calmed everybody else down, right? So I think that would be the sort of the role model. And what I remember of him from a very young age was that calmness that he had.
I absolutely love it because it's very interesting. When I ask this question, I usually get two types of answers. One of them, it'll be another famous person. So if we want to throw in some of the females here, we have Oprah Winfrey, we might have Marie Folio, we might have
Michelle Obama.
Michelle Obama. Yeah. Thank you. That's a great one too. And so we think of these famous people, and ever so often I get these individuals who speak about an elder family member, and I absolutely love that. So I want to throw a question at you. Is if this person, your grandfather, right? Mm-hmm. If he would come to you and tell you, hey, I really think that you should purchase, this particular tool set. Like I'll use tool set because it seems more relatable. But if you were going to be at the shop and you were about to buy this tool set and he came to you and he's like, you know what? I've done my research and I really think this is the tool set you should buy. It would be very perfect for you. I have a feeling you would really take his judgment seriously.
Without question. Yep.
You wouldn't even doubt it, right?
Yes.
Because he's coming from a place of love when he actually sells it to you.
Exactly.
He didn't tell you there's a discount, you need to buy now. He doesn't need to go and say like, none of the closing tactics come into play when the person has built so much reputation, so much trust, and the energy that they're coming from, right? And so I find that super powerful. And then you start thinking, well, if this is going to be happening, does this only happen with family bonds, or can this be translated into the business world as well? And this is where I really want to be able to open up the Pandora's box for people to make sure that they realize that there is a power that you can tap into sales that makes you become the most relatable, trustable, guided mentor for people, so that every time you sell, you come from a place that they genuinely understand that what you're asking for them to do is so much less than what you're going to give them for them taking that action, that the emotion that comes into play is going to be love. Like you genuinely care and want that person to transform. And so when we talk about these sales tactics, which are absolutely critical, like I am the first one to fall in love with all the tactics, I actually consider it the fourth love. There's three other loves you need to have before you get to optimize those tactics. And once you realize you've done those first three, then you start adding those techniques, and you will know where to press pause and where not to cross the threshold, because there's a lot of misconceptions that happen if you are using those tactics and not taking into consideration everyone that doesn't buy, which again, buyers have information now. If someone comes into contact with you and doesn't necessarily give you the money right now, people talk, reviews online, interactions. If they're negative because you decide to use that tactic that makes people go yucky, well, people just don't want to do business with you anymore. And so everything changes. And I think it's a beautiful thing. It's forcing us to step up. And luckily, there's a direction to go that makes sense. And this is what I really want to expose with concepts from my book.
Okay, great. So you talked about four loves, I guess, there. What are they?
All right, so we'll break them down. So before, if we're selling from love, right? So that would be the ideal. Like I tell people, this is what you should aim for, which most people are not thinking love should be in the equation of sales. But let me break it down with the definition of sales, and you'll understand why emotions actually is super important in the sales process. So the way I define sales is it's nothing more than an energy exchange between conscious beings. A sale is energy exchange between conscious beings. And what is energy? You're talking about money. Money is just stored energy. You're talking about goods and services that were created using energy, time, energy. So everything is you're asking somebody to take their time, give you their money. You're going to give them a product. So there's an energy exchange, okay? It's as simple as that. But the missing ingredient is actually emotion. Emotion is energy in motion. And so what are the different energies that you can sell from? And we've already talked about one very briefly, which is, guilt and shame. That's when you're blocked. That's where I tell people, if you're going to think about getting into sales, here's the punchline. We're all salespeople. And even in the story of the grandfather here that actually is such a role model and someone that inspires you, you know that if that person would come to sell, if you could be able to step into that kind of energy and realize that he is also a salesperson. Matter of fact is he put so much value into his reputation, being calm in his character, that innate trust was internal. And if you can channel that as a salesperson yourself, I choose Elon Musk because I say, wow, if every time I'm a salesperson, I can be as inspiring as Elon Musk, who goes and does the most awkward press, right? He's the most awkward. He's so,
really is.
He'll be like, hey guys, so I have a truck. Check my truck. And then you check the truck and he's like, yep, you can buy it. It's amazing. And so, and this is really one of the first things that gets you out of that block is start looking at the proper role models. And the punchline is that we are all salespeople, and everyone you look up to is a salesperson as well. So if you're in the space of you're looking at the Oprah Winfrey, amazing salesperson. Michelle Obama wrote a book, markets herself, sells herself, amazing. And so you can look at their qualities and realize this is what I should aspire to, not the used car salesman that we have a caricature of when it comes to sales. And so you can be proud to be saying, hey, I am a salesperson, and that's a great thing. So this is like the lowest vibration, right? And in my book, I break down the concepts of the second layer being the fear-pride paradox, which is really effective, but actually takes advantage of people because you don't take responsibility for the energy exchange that you make and you don't care. And when you do it from there, that's when you do the fourth, which is just learn the processes, but don't care about the impact. And now you learn to be very effective, but very dangerous. And so I'd caution people that, a lot of times when you're at that level, typical behaviors that could come out are things like addiction, alcohol abuse, and gambling. Like there seems to be a part of you that energetically needs to rebalance, so it feels that it needs to numb itself. And if you've been in sales and you found yourself at that space where you could continuously sell, but it just didn't feel right, this is it. This is where you're in this fear as loving as it could potentially be. But here's the problem. We step up into being more rational in the way we sell. I call it the third level being the rational sales. This is when you start being like, okay, I'm going to tell these people absolutely everything. And when I do that, then they'll be able to make a decision on their own. And again, that's not coming from a place that we think is being responsible. It's actually going from a place that you're giving that responsibility to the buyer.
Right.
So Mark, I'm a marketer, right? So I'm just wondering, all of the research and everything suggests that even before they come to a salesperson, the buyers consumed all of this marketing content, is trying to understand what's going on. So wouldn't you say that we should also be marketing with love?
I feel it falls in the exact same category. So if you're talking sales marketing, like marketing today is sales on a scale, you're just selling to many. And even on the space where today in direct, a lot of the online marketing is actually direct sales, but automated through online channels, right? So the lines have become so blurry that I just want, and most people, they're like, oh, I'm marketing, I'm one of the good guys. But I'm like, no, you're just like the salespeople, which is you are a good guy or a good girl or a good woman or a good man. But the salespeople are in the same bucket. The lines have blurred so much. And so, market, you can market with love as well. And this is where I get excited because when you start doing the sales and the marketing from a rational perspective, it's like, okay, I'm going to build a landing page, right? So I think a lot of the watchers here might be an online business. I'm going to put a landing page and I'm going to put all of the information and the price, and I'll put all the guarantees, and let's just put all the features are going to be there. It'll be a long list of them. All of them will be there. And then you realize nobody's reading it. They're overwhelmed. They're not converting.
Yeah, actually, the word that I like to always use, and I've said this many times, is that I don't think we should be calling ourselves salespeople. We should call people buyer facilitators. We facilitate the buying process. And I think Karthika came up with this term. We should be sense makers. We should help customers make sense of all of that information out there because there's so much stuff, right? And they're competing, they're contradictory. Some of them are very complex. So if you are in the sense making business and you can also sieve through all of this mess and create sense, I think that's what customers may be looking for, because that comes from a place of love. Obviously, when you're trying to make sense to somebody, you're connected with that person. You're trying to understand what where their structures are, and then respond accordingly. It's not a sort of let me tell you. I'm trying to understand what is it that you want to know, right?
100%. People just want to know you care. There's so many choices to make. I just want to buy from the person that's going to give me the thing that is the most relevant. They care, and I'm going to be in good hands. I just want to feel safe. I want to know that I'm making the best decision. We all want to do the best decision, and that's a bit of a role that we have as salespeople. So I kind of want to give that backstory because really I want to break down what these 4 levels of love is, and I'll actually reveal a bit of a punchline. There's actually 5. We might even get to the 5th one. So with that,
Fantastic.
are you guys ready for the 5 loves of selling?
Oh, we
Please.
are indeed.
All right. So the first one is very simple. It's you have to love the impact. You have to love the impact of the sale that you're about to make. And this is really important because if you're going to be selling a product, let's say it's, getting people to attend an online event, you have to make sure the client knows what is the impact that's going to happen from them joining this online event. And so the impact for the client might be that, hey, they're going to learn things that's going to benefit their business. Check. That's good. But here, when people I'm talking about love the impact, is go deeper and get juicy. Like, go really clear. Like, okay, they're going to improve the business. Why is that important? It's like, well, they're going to be able to generate more revenue and more profit. Why is that important? Well, they're going to be able to live a better life. Great. Why that's important? Well, they're a company that does good things to good people, and if they make more money, they get to influence more people. So if they come to attend this conference, that means we're making the world a better place. What? Wait a second. Now you're starting to have fun on the impact. So there's actually 3 big guidelines I encourage people to do. Is 1, get to know the client and what's the problems you're solving in their life. Like, what is the impact you're making for them? Okay. And slowly you're going to expand and go, hey, what's the impact for me impacting this client is going to make for the world? And I love to use this example. We talked about Elon Musk earlier, and you could say the impact that they do is actually to reduce the cost of shipping cargo into space. That's a good impact. They're reducing the cost. More satellites get to go up for a lower cost. Great. But what is SpaceX, Tesla, Solar City? What is Elon Musk's great vision? Do you know it?
Mars.
I don't need to dig.
Interplanetary species.
Yeah.
Thank you. That is actually the more key word. So making humanity an interplanetary species. Wait a second. So you're telling me that not only am I going to save money, but I'm going to be a key contributor to making humanity an interplanetary species, which means I'm going to be a part of that mission when I do business with them. Have you ever heard of ULA?
No.
No?
No.
Karthinga?
No.
United Launch Alliance, ULA, is a collaboration between Boeing and Lockheed Martin.
Oh, right,
It
yes.
also ships cargo to space that nobody knows. But here you have the story of when you make the impact of the world. I remember I was selling real estate, and this was investment properties. And I would go to people and say, hey, when you buy this, it's better than leaving your money at the bank. You're going to make a better return on investment, and you'll have a great capital gain on the backside. And sometimes I get angry at myself because I've learned these concepts. And could you imagine what would have happened if I went to these investors, which I did sell, but not with the energy that I could have, which would have been, hey, America went through the greatest depression. This was back in 2010, right? Okay. I could go to a Canadian and say, instead of you leaving your money at the bank where these people are going to just, make money off your money, which they don't give you anything in return, you're going to get great investment returns on this. We're talking like 3 to 4 times more than what you get at the bank. But at the same time, not only are going to help Americans be able to get a good home at a good price that they can rent in a great school district, but the fact that you've put your money there funds the taxes that actually supports the schools, which means better education for all Americans. Matter of fact, there's a lot of people looking for jobs, and every time you transact, you get contractors to go in, property managers to work, people to get a good home. You're restarting the American economy, and by the way, you're going to make a ton of money. So why not be part of the greatest revitalization process in the process of getting rich? I want that. So
exactly.
This is the takeaway is as much as you get clear on solving the problem for the client, add the mission to the world. And then you're going to make some decisions in your business. Like if you're just selling sugared water, what good is that making for the world? And if not, maybe you should look at something that's more aligned. And, the third aspect that I'd want you to be clear on the impact is what's the impact you want for yourself? See, I'm tired of seeing very successful salespeople and businesses that aren't doing the positive impact in the world. And it's because we almost feel like we're supposed to be a martyr if we're going to be doing something good in the world, which I think we should be abundant. And so look at the impact you want to do for yourself. What is the abundance you want? That's just as important as the impact you're making in the world. And quite frankly, we need more role models that are showing what happens when people care and how much money they make for themselves and make the world a better place and take care of their clients. Those are the people in the economy that should be rewarded, and you should be one of them too.
Excellent point.
All right. So that would be the first love. Are we ready for number 2?
Oh, yes, we are.
All right. So now that we've gotten clear on loving the impact, so this is a bit of exercise. Go away, draw it down. And here's the beauty. The more you get clear on loving the impact, you're going to get some juicy sales copy that you can put on all those web pages that tells people why they should do business with you. Because clearly people are going to ask, why you? Well, when you're clear on the impact, you already have a competitive advantage. So second love here is very simple. You have to love the client. And you don't need to do a proposal here, but you will write a proposal. But you don't need to get down on one knee. Loving the client is very simply a question of understanding. This is the best way you show love to a client. How much energy do you spend in understanding this client, what makes them tick, who they are, and understand that problem so intimately? And I stress this because oftentimes we make the mistake that we are the buyer. And so unless you're if you're shopping for a minivan and you walk into a Lamborghini dealership and they're trying to give you a two-door, convertible Lamborghini, and you're like, oh my God, this is so overpriced. And then they're like, yeah, that's not what you're looking for. And so when we start doing the things that make us more clear on who the client are, what makes them tick, and how our impact is going to be relevant to them, we're going to communicate to them better, we're going to understand them better, and you're going to be more effective in targeting the right people and getting more of the similar people that have success with your product or service. I often tell the story about the fish. If you fall in love with a fish, you're not going to pick it out of the aquarium and start giving it a big hug because that's how you love to be loved. You're going to
have to love people where they need to be loved.
And so you do that by taking time, caring enough to understand them. So if you already have clients, how often after they've just bought, call them, ask them how they're doing. 6 months later, call them, ask them how is the product serving them. Make sure that they're having continuously great experiences with doing business with you, and start seeing what were the pain points and take information. Why did they buy? Ask them more questions, and that'll just make you a better salesperson in the process. So love the client, genuinely care.
So Mark, if I can just interject just a little bit, it sounds like a lot of this stuff, the whole love concept can't come without us being authentic and being ourselves, right? And that's a challenge that a lot of salespeople face, is just being authentic and being yourself.
Well, what happens is we feel like we're supposed to fit this mold of a salesperson. And if we were talking maybe 50 years ago, right, there wasn't as much information access, and we couldn't scale the way that we scale a lot of the repetitive little activities that are supposed to communicate the basic features and the basic benefits. And what I mean by that is, today, all the preliminary research gets done online. You don't need someone that's just pushing that information in people's face. And so you would jump into the role of a person that is confident, that can share facts, and that can work hard and dial those numbers. And so the salesperson was like, okay, follow the script, do this, do that. So you wouldn't feel as authentic, but you needed to reach a scale. And, right now you just didn't have those tools of automation, and the buyers didn't have all the access to the information. So you control the information as a buyer. And companies quickly understood that the process of doing that was very lucrative, and you didn't need somebody to be authentic to be able to do that.
Right.
But if we look at today, things have changed. And yes, you can get away with doing a couple sales for a quick buck if you're going to disappear by the night. But we're not the county circus coming in for a month. We're going to have an online reputation that follows us. And so you showing up as authentic is one of the best things you can do to close more sales. Because if I feel that I can trust you, and this is the number one thing, we want to do business with people that we can trust. If you're not coming as authentic, you're going to break that mold at some point, and guess what? There's going to be a disconnect, and it won't be effective. Oops, give me a.
Bless you.
That is enough. That happened in the middle of a live.
Bless you.
Thank you. At least I know how to hit the mute button when that happens.
You do,
so I love that you brought this up, but the concept of authenticity is just good practice. And another punchline here is that, selling. Dan Pink wrote the book, To Sell is Human. And this is the trend. The more human we become, the better salespeople we're going to become. And this is what's incredible. With that, are we ready for a third love here?
Yeah. We are actually. I have a follow-up question, but I'll ask that later.
Well, if it's still related to the client, we could go ahead right now.
No, it's interesting you mentioned the human part, because on one hand, you have AI and people are saying salespeople are going to be obsolete and AI is going to take over. So I'm just wondering what your take on that is.
That's actually a great closing question. So you're right. Let's get that. Let's get people. If you're watching this, you're going to have to watch till the end, and we'll answer what will happen when AI comes, because I do have a very relevant answer to that.
Okay.
So the third love is love the product. Okay. You got to love the product you're selling. See, I talked about some of the psychological blocks that put you in a place of shame and guilt, but oftentimes it's if you're selling a really bad product. It was very interesting. I was having an interview with a gentleman who has a podcast based in India. and he sells fast-paced consumer goods. And he runs a team of salespeople. And when I mentioned about these salespeople that just go in, get out, and they tend to have tendency to have addiction issues or possibly like alcoholism, he was like, wow, you know what, that's really true. There's so many people that are selling things that they don't care about, chips, sodas. What's the impact you're making? It's not clear. And so you're just doing it because you need to build abundance for yourself. And it's a shame, really, because you just keep going and there seems to be a part of you that kind of dies. And so what I wanted to encourage here is, a lot of times if you're feeling resistance to sell the product, there could be things you could do to the product. And there's a piece of advice that I thought would have been the right one, but I think is actually not. Initially, a lot of people say, fake it till you
make it.
Yeah.
I don't think that's right.
I agree.
It's not right. At first, I thought maybe that's what I need to do. If you're mentally trying to reprogram some beliefs, sometimes, affirmations can bring you closer to those types of beliefs. But at the same time, I rewrote that statement into something I think is so much more effective, quicker, and powerful, which is don't fake it, just make it. Like, make that product awesome. And, the first thing that I'll see people typically, especially if they have to sell themselves, my God, the first thing you'll think about is if I'm having insecurities about, this product, selling it at this current price, I'm going to discount the price. Price discounting is not coming from a place of love. It's coming from a place of scarcity. It's coming from a place of guilt. It's coming from a place of shame. It's coming from a place of rationality. It's anything but love. And so love is in the same realm as abundance, is in the same realm as creation. So how do you shift your mind when you have hesitancy with the product to come into a place of creation? And I use a very simple technique. It's so obvious. It's so simple. You're going to knock your head and be like, yep. Think about whatever price point you have for the product you're selling and imagine that it is 10 times more expensive. Now, make a list of all the things that would need to be different about your product for it to be a really good deal at that price. So let's say, are most of the people listening to this consultants, business owners? Who are we talking to?
Run the gamut from CEOs down to startup founders to practitioners of all kinds. Yeah. Very global, very diverse.
I want to use the CEO example because I haven't used that before. But if you as a CEO, you have a certain market valuation for the company. Imagine if your market valuation was 10 times more and you needed to raise funds at that market cap. Think about what would need to be different in your company for it to be worth 10 times more. How many more customers? How much more, brand equity did you have? How many more, investments that were actually on autopilot or processes? Like, what departments needs to exist? You start thinking, what would it take for it to be that way? And what would it look like? And when you do that, you start realizing that there's opportunities you might not have seen that you can optimize the existing product at a very low cost. The simplest one would be if you have a product that you're like, okay, let's say I'm doing consulting or I'm selling a product that, connects into an air conditioning unit, right? And this provides air conditioning units for an entire shopping mall. And it's a very important piece and it sells for $3,000. And you think, wow, if I sold this for $30,000, maybe it would come with this guarantee of maintenance that I would come every 3 weeks to come and check on it. And maybe I would actually be able to provide more units. And maybe there would be, all these additional goods and services that would be accompanied with that product. And then you can go back to the drawing board saying, is my product still the same price with these extra features? And did I feel good about that? Do I need to raise my price now to give even more love to the people? Because I talked about it's an energy exchange. So you want to give more energy, you got to raise the price, then you got to give more love, right? And then the other thing is you might find yourself with a new offer that's 10 times more expensive and people might actually want it because you studied the second love, which is loving the client. Now just you have a bit more understanding. You'd be like, hey, maybe they do need a $30,000 solution because that's what they were looking for all along. And so simple, but effective.
So it's interesting, Mark, for me, because a while ago, I think a few years ago, when I was listening to the Airbnb CEO, he talked about creating this 11-star experience, right? Where you can surprise the customer. What can we do, that will make you tell everybody about it? And that's kind of also sort of in line with what you're saying.
Right. So, and if you're not a salesperson, which we're all salespeople, you're the head of HR, you're still a salesperson. Guess what? You need to sell the reason for people to come work for your company. And so even as you're designing your company culture and you're saying, hey, I want to attract, the highest quality people, start thinking, what would make this place 10 times more attractive to work here? Now you start optimizing. What is the culture that we're building? What is the training we're giving these people? And now you start realizing, wow, we can do all this. And so this exercise, again, as you step in a place of love, you step in a place of creation and you're ready to give. When you have these ideas, it starts flowing because you're just in that beautiful space. So don't go into the scarcity space where you want to discount. Instead, go into the abundance where you want to create and see what comes out on the other side.
Wow, that's amazingly powerful. I've always sort of immersed. I mean, I always wonder when salespeople say, "Hey, I'm a good sales guy. Whatever. You're selling apples, oranges, whatever. I'll sell anything. Just tell me what it is, or give me the brochure and watch the pitches, and I'll go do it." And I think that was always based on sort of this thing of I can talk myself into that position, right? I don't really need to know too much about the product. Just give me the summary and tell me who the target is. Point me in the right direction, and I'll go sell. I think. I was never one of those salespeople. I would want to know the nitty gritty, what it does and how it impacts and what are the problems customers are trying to solve. I would drive the engineers nuts because they were like, here's the sales guy who's really, first of all, probably doesn't have the technical chops to match, but want to know everything about this thing that we're doing. But I would say, go be patient. I got to know this because if I don't believe it, I can't sell it. And if I don't feel that it provides value, how the customer going to find that out? And I think what you just put your finger on so very accurately is that energy concept, right? That the customer can sense that. If you don't feel that it is of value, how are they going to feel that? They're not going to feel that, right? I think that's the point here.
And again, like we talk about authenticity, imagine if you were in a part of a training, and sometimes we don't have the luxury to be able to study everything. We're just getting started. I'd be let's say you're selling a complex product is you walk into a customer interaction as a salesperson and knowing that you'll have your sales engineers that are going to be in the background, right?
Right.
One of the first interactions I tell people, if I was just getting started, I'd be like, hey, Lavindra, I just got started on this work, but guess what? I've been walking around the office. I've been seeing what the people are doing. I've been hearing the stories of the customers, and it sounds like what we do is a great service to lots. What I'm really excited about is learning more about it because I haven't figured everything out, but I'm curious to learn more about you. I want to learn about your business, and let's see if the solution can actually do the same type of story that I've been able to do with so many other people that I've heard the studies of. We're going to be learning this together, which makes you one of my most exciting clients because you're going to be one of my first, and so I'm excited to go on this journey with you. I'm being a human being. But you're just like, hey, I don't know all the answers, but I know there's a good team. I know there's a good product, and I'm in the process of learning. And maybe by the end of this conversation, you won't buy it, but at least we'll learn a lot more about your business, and you'll find the right solution in the end. I guarantee it. Like, wow, wouldn't that be wonderful? And this is the energy I want people like this. I'm so glad you brought this up because that's literally the fourth love in selling. It's loving the process of selling. It's loving the process because now you start learning the right techniques. You start learning the process. You start realizing that this is the way people want to be sold. Like, we don't want to be strong arm in sale. We're going to find out what needs to be found out. And a lot of the sales that happen now are long-term commitment, relationship built. So it's not just I'm selling you a trinket. We're going to be building a relationship together. So now, guess what? You pick up those books like Spin Selling. You pick up those books that could be a closer's guide to learn some of the language. And I want to give a takeaway, which I just interviewed a gentleman. His name is Alex Mandosian. He is the grandfather when it comes to doing webinars, telesummits. He was selling products through like telesummits in the 90s. Everybody would call into the conference lines. And he gave me one of the best processes when it comes to sales, which is going to be super good as a takeaway for people listening here. So he said there's 3 reasons people buy. They just want to know 3 things. They want to know, why is this relevant? Why you? And why right now? That's what people want to know. Then you start learning what are the processes that gets people to understand why you're relevant, to understand why you, and to understand why now. And there's so many techniques to do that. But here's the beauty. You've only got to this point after doing the first 3 loves. So you're clear on the impact. You took the time to understand the customer, and you have a great product. It is your moral obligation and duty to start applying the processes that are necessary for people to understand that value. Because we're not rational beings, we're emotional beings. And now that you've learned to be a great salesperson, you're actually practicing empathy. That is the language to speak emotions with the other person, because if you truly think you're going to be able to really solve their problems, like I had a friend this morning, they didn't want to go to the gym. I go to the gym like 5-6 times a week. And then I looked at her and I used every psychological manipulation techniques that I knew for her interaction with me. I was like, go put your gym clothes on. We're about to go to the gym. And she was like, she was mad. Walked into the gym, finished. She's like, I feel great. Just came over to me earlier, just said I had the greatest, most productive days. Why? Because I did apply pressure. I did become strong on the way that I communicated with her. And that's because I knew I was coming from a place of love.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. The difference between manipulation and empathy is what is the place you're coming from. And if you're coming from a place of love, they will feel it and they'll know that you're speaking to their higher self, not manipulating their lower self. Does this make sense?
It does. It does. It
Okay.
totally makes sense. So, Mark, I mean, in your definition, sorry, it's my turn probably. You talk about selling becomes an act of greatest love and care, right? I want to focus a little bit on the care part, because care also is after sales, what happens after you've sold. So it extends to the entire company.
100%. And this is where I would package that within the product. So like your product comes with aftercare service, or your product actually comes with ensuring these guarantees, these, money back guarantees. Maybe there's some risk that you take in. There's payment plans. Like every way that you want to structure what you propose as an offer is a place where you can come from a place of love. You're maybe understanding that, the cash flow cycles that this company comes through is every 6 months. So even if we install this now, their first cycle doesn't come in 6 months. How can I design the product that has the first payment collections in 6 months? Like extreme example, but again, you took the time to understand. And so when you start structuring everything that is necessary, you'll put in the right thing that match what your client's needs. And this is all the best examples showing the most amount, but maybe you'll realize that the best thing you can do to show love is minimize your cost and rapidly sell many to a lot of people, because your impact needs to be wide. Now you start stepping into Amazon's model, where Amazon is saying, how do I move the most amount of volume with the lowest margins, where I can actually get so much market force that I can deliver the best customer experiences? Like they coming from a really strong place of love, and now it's almost outrageous because you need to catch up with them. So the entire organization rests on you caring, and it extends beyond sales. But when I speak to sales, people are like, that makes an immediate impact to my bottom line. But when you start applying this with sales, it trickles to the entire organization as fast as anything else. And that's what's the beauty of it.
So what's the fifth?
Sorry, Lavi, go ahead.
What's the fifth one?
The bonus one. Can you take a guess? What do you think the last love in selling could be?
Oh boy,
Remember, I used to work for Mind Valley, which is a personal growth company.
Oh, okay. Well, it would be loving yourself.
Boom. Bingo. It's self-love. It's self-love, because here's the fact. Selling can be hard, because selling will bring out every insecurity you have. Are you afraid of being rejected? It's one of the biggest fears we have as humans, because if we get rejected, it means we're left from the tribe back in the ancient days, which means we're left alone and we die.
Right.
No wonder it's so terrifying to pick up the phone and possibly be rejected. Matter of fact, there's even traumas we might have from when we were children, asking mom and dad, can we get this, please, 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 please? And then at some point, parents say, hey, no means no, stop asking. And then you realize that if I follow up 3 times on this phone call, this is going to be painful. I'm not going to get love. And you have these little traumas that stick around. And what I want to I first need to make a confession. This is one that I'm still on a journey on. There's still a lot of work that I'm doing on this space. And what I tend to realize, which I'm noticing in my life, and I think I've noticed in the lives of a lot of people too, is the journey of self-love is a lifelong journey. We're going through ups. We're going through downs. And when you get into a place of being someone that actively sells, you get a high feedback loop that makes you deal with every insecurity. Someone says no to you. Do you take it personally? Why? I don't know. What's going on? And the word of wisdom that I just leave people with when I speak about, the self-love, it actually comes from an amazing piece of literature called The 4 Agreements, which is a book written by Don Miguel Luis. And what he speaks about are 4 things you can live by in this created world that we've made, right? One of the agreements is actually just do your best. And what they mean by that is no matter where you're starting from or where you're at right now, the only activity you've ever done throughout your entire life is your best for that current situation. Whether you decide to spend the day on the couch and watch Netflix, guess what? That was the best you could do that day. If you went and had an amazing day, closed a ton of sales, that was the best that you had for that day. Our circumstances always change day by day, minute by minute, and we haven't walked in the shoes of other people. And so when you show up, you don't need to compare. You just show up with your best. And that's how you show up with love, because else you're coming up with guilt, shame, and then you're forcing yourself through, and then you're feeling that resistance. But instead, if you can come from a place of acceptance, saying, I'm going to show up and do my best, that's a big leap forward to go out and start doing some of the little steps I've shared here, which is getting clear on the impact. Try to understand your customers better. Make your product a little better. Get into learning the processes, realizing its empathy, and you'll know that this is absolutely the best you could do to be a better salesperson.
It's interesting, Mark. I don't know. Are you a fan of Hindu philosophy? Do you read Hindu philosophy at all? Or?
Well, not specifically Hindu. I know a few of the stories. I have went through Vipassana, which they chase a lot more of the like Buddhist theories.
Right.
And living in Bali, I've heard some of the stories because there's a lot of the origins that are Hinduism, right?
I love the fact that you said love the process of selling, but you never talked about the outcome, because it's interesting. A lot of the Hindu philosophy is based on investing in the process but not worrying about the outcome. And that sort of, I think, helps us deal with rejection and things like that. But coming back to a sort of non-philosophical world, how would that affect things like targets and KPIs? Because all salespeople have that, right?
If it serves the purpose of making you more productive in the process, like if you're managing a sales team, think, what is that target there for? Is it there to inspire? Is it there to motivate? Is it coming from a place of love? Again, come back to the place of love. If you set a target, it's because you want to be able to have a thing of celebration that aligns with the company's goal. If you put up a target and saying, hey, when we hit that target, you know what that means? Get clear on the impact. Again, what is the impact of that target? When we hit 100, we're going to have this much revenue, which will bring up the valuation of the company, which means we'll be able to raise more money. That means we're going to be able to grow the factories, manufacture more goods at a lower cost, make our customers happier, and truly make the world a better place. Like if Tesla, for example, since I used that example before, says we need to sell X number of cars, you know why you're going out there selling cars. You're getting enthusiastic. Imagine having an entire sales team fired up, enthusiastic. This is where these quotas are useful, because you're stirring this amazing chemistry that comes in our mind when there's a sense of competition, and it's great. And when you can do that mixed with the purpose, and the selling with love gives you that, you're going to have an unstoppable sales team.
So let me ask a sort of maybe a little bit more subtle, a trickier question. So, the old school salespeople used to be compensated with commissions. All right. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, generally speaking, is that still a place of love when you commission salespeople?
100%. I love commission.
Individual salespeople like commission, right? But it does lead to lots of behaviors that may not be, with the love of the customer in mind, right? So you're motivated on self-enrichment instead of client empowerment.
I don't think it's a compensation question. It's actually a culture issue. And so I actually see that, yes, you can have some, like, if you're going to work for a company that's saying you got to sell stock, you're going to be paid 100% of what you sell, there's probably something wrong going on, right? But I think it's more of a culture issue. So I remember when I was, one of the jobs I had was very early on in my 20s. I was booking appointments for realtors, right? And what they were doing was actually allowing me to book the appointment. And if the realtor ended up selling the home, I would get a piece of the commission. And this was great because I was very motivated to sell and make more money. But the culture was always that when you book an appointment, the outcome is to sell a home that we can genuinely help. If I would book an appointment with somebody that was, in a different city that we couldn't help, and the realtor would be like, I can't do anything about that, it wouldn't even reflect to my results. So here, if the impact is really clear, you took the time to understand the client and you have a great product, when you actually have commission-aligned salespeople, they're actually directly plugged into the energy of love with a compensation coming right back to them. So again, if the culture is nurturing selling from love, you can have a compensation plan that's based on commission. And even if you do that, again, the culture will ensure that you're doing the right steps, you're being ethical, and you train your salespeople on what is considered right, what is considered wrong. I mentioned earlier, buyers talk, feedback goes around. And if you feel that you have a salesperson that's using tactics to manipulate the clients, that uses it to maximize their own commission, that's a mishire. You didn't do the culture check, or you haven't set the parameters of your culture, or maybe you're not being authentic in the way that you operate your business and your salespeople know it. Because if you're operating in the gray area, your salespeople are going to also operate in the gray area. So I would check with the leadership team as well.
Okay, point taken.
Fair point. So I had a little bit more of a philosophical question in that I know you talk a lot about loving yourself. And it was interesting because I think I watched another one of your podcasts where you said you sort of have to balance it out because you can end up becoming narcissistic.
Yeah. So this was one of my earlier talks. Actually, this is the first time I introduced the concept. And the concept of narcissism actually falls in that second layer. So I didn't go too much in depth in this interview, where the second, we call the fear pride paradox, is actually when you get really, really good at the fourth love of selling, which is loving the process, but you haven't done your work on the impact, the client, or the product. You decided to ignore that. You've numbed yourself to those ideas, and you've realized that, hey, I get a lot of fun getting a lot of money and I feel powerful. Matter of fact, the reason you get a kick of feeling so powerful is because innately you are not powerful. If you feel you need to make a sale to feel powerful, it means that your resting state is not powerful, is not loving. And so that's why I call it the fear pride paradox, because it comes from a place of scarcity, even though it feels good and you look at them. And here's the unfortunate thing. They are effective. A salesperson who operates without caring can appear confident and can actually move product. And some companies decide that it's more important to do that, and they basically don't build that culture. And then again, you have these narcissistic people that can sell, but they don't care. And you see a lot of the problems we have in the world come from that, because we decide not to take full responsibility for everything. And so the narcissism, again, gets dispelled if you start realizing that you should really care about everything that you impact, because it is your responsibility as a salesperson. And again, as a company, you need to build that culture. And as an individual salesperson, you need to nurture that within yourself. And here's the beauty of it. If you are a salesperson, frontline salesperson, and you realize, hey, I'm going to start really caring about my impact, and you work for a company and you realize, hey, maybe I can now give suggestions so to make sure that the company's transitioning on making a better impact, maybe they'll take your opinion, and then you'll quickly be promoted in that company, because who doesn't want an engaged employee? It's like one of the biggest things companies are trying to find is more engaged employees. But if you find yourself that in this organization, they're not open to your feedback, they don't want to do more, then you're going to be a salesperson that has experience, that has caring, wants to be engaged in a company. Doors are open for you. There are so many people looking for great, enthusiastic, caring salespeople that the money is out there, and you're going to be able to apply to the greatest jobs. And you might have learned a few of the techniques that you can apply for yourself to get clear on what is the impact you want to make on the planet individually. How do you take the time to understand? What is the process you do when you do your research? And how do you make yourself the best product you can ever be? Again, can be applied on a personal level. And when you start being so focused on the impact, your narcissism will dispel.
So, Jason, we are in sort of living in an extraordinary period of time, I think, in recent memory, right? We're sort of forced to sort of be closer to family because we are trapped inside our homes. We don't know what the future really holds. Lots of businesses are imploding as we speak. Millions of people are unemployed. There's a lot of stress, I think, on people who are on frontline sales and marketing, simply because, their output, their efforts are what will keep a company from going under, right? I mean, so there's a tremendous amount of burden and pressure there. What would the piece of advice that you would give such people that are, maybe having a fear of losing their jobs, or have some questions about, should I get more aggressive, or should I adopt love as a guiding principle, right? Because you're toying with things that your tendency is to go towards things that are familiar, not things that are new. And what we're trying to do here at Pandemic Pantry is actually doing the opposite, saying, hey, this may be a great time to pause and adopt something that's very different from what you've done in the past, right? So instead of pressing the gas pedal on the old stuff, maybe you just junk it and bring some new stuff into your life. And that's why we have people like you on the show. So what advice would you give somebody like that who's sort of, trying to translate this into real practical abundance?
I love that question. And here's another interesting observation, right? So we're in the middle of the pandemic. This is a really interesting year for 2020. All the sales and marketing people, when things are going bad, all the pressure's on because the numbers need to come in from sales and marketing, right? Let's go back in 2019 then. What was happening then is times were extremely abundant. Everybody was racing for more money. What was happening to sales and marketing teams? They still had a lot of pressure to be number one. They still had to outgrow their quotas, and they had a lot of other competitors. It's so interesting because sales and marketing always have pressure all the time, no matter the economy. You're always asked to do more than what you're capable. And again, this is where the last love becomes really helpful, because you have to realize you do your best and this is it. You really go out there and do your best. And so one of the other things I would tell, which actually ties into our earlier question, right, about AI and what's going on. I remember at the dawn of the internet, They spoke about how, I remember an article said, oh, now that the internet is here, we won't need any salespeople anymore. And then people were celebrating that because we don't like salespeople. And matter of fact is people need hand-holding more than ever. And today, in a rough economy, more people need help more than ever. And if you're developing your skills as a salesperson or as a marketer, isn't it interesting that most of the top CEOs in the world have a background in sales and marketing?
Yeah.
You're nurturing one of the most relevant skill sets when it comes to being human, which is making sure that you can empathize, identify people's problems, help them solve it. And so you are in a great position. Yes, things might get tough. There might be layoffs, but this is the skill that you can always nurture. And even as AI comes and automation comes, our jobs are going to evolve. I believe we're going to be working hand in hand with more accurate data to help people even more. And this is going to be the future of what sales look like. We're all just going to become better people that are looking to solve other people's problems. And this is the trend line that I'm seeing. Because as buyers, we're becoming more demanding and we want to be more clear on our needs and letting them know we expect a certain level of service. We expect a certain level of sales experience. And as salespeople, as we learn the new tactics, which are showing to be more effective, then we're becoming better salespeople. We're fixing our reputation. Yeah, a lot of us have done a really bad job on managing. The salespeople need to hire a PR firm. This is what I'm hoping to be, the PR guy for salespeople, just saying, hey, there's been a lot of bad rep. We need to make sure that make it better. And during this pandemic, we're going to shift a lot of the businesses to e-commerce. And so I would encourage anybody who's in the front line to make sure that you're also getting yourself very versed with how the translation of everything that you do happens more online, because you will need to adapt faster than you thought. And so learning how the tools are being used, what are the ways that people want to be helped, how are they making the decisions online? Because we're not lacking information now, we're overwhelmed with information. And so if you're going to be someone that knows how to speak empathetically and you're working for the company that's selling the right product, making the right impact to the right people, then you're going to be employed for life.
Jason, it's interesting. You talk a lot about the transition online. So I think Lavi and I, when we were discussing earlier, one of the questions we had was, how do you sort of project love virtually?
Can you feel my love? I would first
Jason put it like that.
When you put it like that.
when the first thing I would encourage you is get a very nice microphone. No.
It does help.
Enthusiasm is contagious. Video creates a lot more body language. So if you can do video calls because you can be face to face, there's a lot more that can be expressed because you can see my hands moving, the voice. So if you are a salesperson, you better have great headphones and a nice microphone. These are the tools of your trade. If you're a real estate agent back in the classic days, you'd get a car that's actually clean, that can carry the people because they want to make sure they're taken care of. If you're going to be selling online, doing any kind of interactions digitally, get the right setup. Matter of fact, I sometimes even if I'm going to be doing webinars, I will make sure to get the equipment that is necessary so that everything is done professionally. You are not an amateur. You are a professional. And so how do you communicate the love? You take care of what is the ways that channels that you need to use need to be maximized. So get all the audio, get all the video, make sure you're expressive. The body language still happens. And if you communicate that enthusiasm, people usually feel it. So oftentimes I do presentations online. I absolutely love it because I'm very clear as to why I'm bringing this message forward, because I know that if I can teach businesses to care more, we're going to make the world a better place. And the first place that I can go to make them care more is make them care about how they sell, because that is where the energy directly exchanges. And that trickle effect will bring abundance to so many more, will show the role models of salespeople that are doing good things in the world. And that is exactly why I do what I do. And when you know I'm coming from this place, you're going to feel the love. It's a vibration, and that stuff gets translated digitally.
Spot on. So, Jason, when is the book coming out? Is it in December? I know with COVID and everything, it's a...
Yeah, well, COVID should have gave me more time to write it, right? But matter of fact, it's gotten so busy. So I left Mind Valley. I simply host a podcast now so that I can focus more on getting my message around selling with love to be gone to the masses. Targeting around a January date for the book. And so I'm just in the editing phase, and concepts are pretty solid, so I'm having fun with it. But if anybody wants to have an advanced copy, they can definitely just send me a message on Instagram. I'll be happy to send them a cheat sheet that can show them how to apply these 5 loves of selling. There's 3 specific questions they can ask for each love. They can just find me on Instagram, which is @JasonMarkCampbell.
Oh, wonderful. So January is when we'll get the actual book. But I mean, you've been generous enough to offer this just online through Instagram. That's great. I hope people watching take advantage of that. That'll be awesome. Karthika, any last questions for Jason?
Yeah, I was just wondering, Jason, have you been to Sri Lanka at all? Because I'm in Sri Lanka.
I did not know you were in Sri Lanka, but I haven't been.
I'm in India, and she's in Sri Lanka.
That's incredible. I've only heard incredible stories. I had some friends I went to spend a few months there, and they were saying that it's kind of like this untouched surfer's paradise right now. And so I don't think I can travel there now. I am stuck at Bali, Indonesia, which is also an amazing place to be.
Yes.
But I hope to go visit at some time when we see a new normal that allows us to fly around the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd like to formally extend for you to come over to Sri Lanka and teach us how to sell with love.
It would be my pleasure.
Thank you.
So we're looking forward, Jason, to the book. Thank you for. I mean, this has been I've taken more notes than I think I have ever as a co-host. Got pages down here. So I think it's great to have someone reinforce that. The things that you feel innately inside you, right? And sometimes you always wonder whether you are a little different from everybody else, because unfortunately, in the sales profession, you see the examples that you see out there not very pleasant, as you so rightly pointed out. And I think, I always wonder, in our profession, there isn't much professional sort of, I mean, if you want to be an accountant, you can go to school. If you want to be a marketing, you can go to school. But if you want to be a salesperson, there's no degree program anywhere, right? And I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and tells, if you have children, you don't tell your kids, hey, I want you to be a salesperson, right? They want you to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, whatever, anybody else but a salesperson, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is a problem within our profession, because I think we've done a poor job of sort of selling with love, frankly, right? We've sold from a very different place. And I think that's why we are in the place we're in now, because I think a lot of us don't have the tooling. We have, created a bad picture for ourselves and the profession and for the companies that we work for, simply because we haven't adopted selling with love. And that's why I thought the title for your book was amazing. And we've actually sort of marketed you as we always talk about ourselves, Karthik and I, about writing a 21st century playbook for sales and marketing. And the selling with love would be a chapter in that new book, right? Because I think this is a key sort of place for people to sort of start their journey. I mean, if you sort of start from love, then the mistakes you would make across the board will be significantly less. I mean, obviously, life is an ongoing learning journey. So, yeah, thank you so much, Jason, for gracing Pandemic Punditry. And we're very happy that you made it and that we were able to have this wonderful, delightful conversation with you. All the very best for your book. We're looking forward to seeing it, and we'll post a link on the video for you, and we'll share the recording with you when it's ready as well.
Much appreciate being here. I had a ton of fun. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.